agenda. And Mr. Robb, I'll turn it over to you for some comments before we take the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me, first of all, start by explaining what a consent agenda is. A large part of the City Council agenda of any council in the state of North Carolina is our routine housekeeping items, and we can spend an entire hour going through presentations on very routine items. So what cities have done in the state, and counties as well, is to develop a consent agenda. And what we do is place routine items on the consent agenda. I will go through them for the record, and then the council has the opportunity to pull any item it wants to off the agenda and discuss it. But if the council finds that these items are okay for approval, they will make only one motion to approve all of these items. And again, these are generally the routine housekeeping items that all of the cities in the state go through on a monthly basis. So I'm going to make comments on all of our consent agenda items for the sake of the audience, and you'll get a good sense of what these items are. Number one, items A through H are minutes and reports of the City Council meeting and committee meetings. Item I, Councilmember Keziah granted $3,000 to the Monroe High Athletic Foundation from council discretionary funds. Item J is a report on the use of the manager's discretionary account, which is a fancy name for our contingency account, for $1,750 for a background investigation for our city manager. That was part of the hiring process. Number two is an ordinance to remove the residency requirements for sworn members of the police department. That's an amendment to our existing ordinance. Number three is a budget ordinance to close completed capital projects. This is the first meeting since the end of the fiscal year, and every year at this time the finance department looks at our expenditures from the previous year, and we close capital projects that have been complete. And a capital project might be replacement of a water line or a sewer line, or installing a new circuit or replacing a circuit, and we use a contractor. It could be as simple as just cutting trees down. Capital projects are is another term for work done by contractors. So we have to open up a capital project account, do the work through the account, and then physically the council has to make a motion to close that account. And that's what this item does, and it's kind of a cleanup of the previous year's projects. Number four, year-end housekeeping budget amendments for unspent appropriations and appropriation for temporary planning. Again, this is a housekeeping item. At the end of the budget year, the finance department looks at projects that we have not been able to complete as of June 30th, and the monies that have been appropriated but not spent on these projects that are still in the process of being completed are rolled over to the new fiscal year. These are what we typically call rollover items. The other is we have a temporary planning position in place to help us with our new code enforcement effort and to provide staffing while our planning director is on maternity leave. Number five is a bid award of $106,676 to Brushy Mountain Builders to replace flashboards at Lake Lee. Again, it's a housekeeping item to replace infrastructure that has gone into disrepair. The other is a bid award of $712,951 to Boggs Paving for our summer asphalt program. This is for the reconstruction and overlay of city streets. Number six is the cancellation of the November 18th, 2014 council meeting due to its conflict with the National League of Cities conference. We will simply not have an agenda, we'll have a quorum for that meeting to the council members at that conference. Number 7 is to call for public hearings for our next meeting. It's traditional that the city council call for a public hearing, then it is advertised in the news media and on our website, and then the council conducts that public hearing at the next meeting. That would be for a financing agreement for construction of Fire Station Number 4, zoning map amendments. All zoning changes have to be done through public hearing. This amendment would be for 631 North Secrest Avenue, 2468 Old Charlotte Highway, and 1417 Dove Street. There's a zoning text amendment. The text amendment means rather than a rezoning of property, a text amendment changes the language of the zoning ordinance itself. This also requires a public hearing. Our zoning ordinance is known as a unified development ordinance, and this particular amendment involves changes to the fence wall and wall section of the ordinance. Number 8 is approval of the ABC Board travel policy. The General Assembly asks that the parent government of the ABC boards approve their respective policies, and this is following that statute. Number 9, annual tax settlement for 2013 tax. Our collection rate is 96.07. Which is a very good collection rate. Number 10 is to approve $2,500 final bid to sell city-owned property at 106 Johnson Avenue. This has gone through the upset bid process as per the general statutes of the state of North Carolina, and the high bid approved for this city-owned property is $2,500. It's the city's intent to return property that has no public purpose back to the private sector. 11 is to certify values and authorize the tax collector to bill and collect $17,514,246. As you will know, in the next week or two, your tax bills are going out, and this is the certification of the values. Again, these are items that are required by the state's general statutes. Number 12, a bid award of $3,485,000 to Godfrey Construction to construct Fire Station Number 4 and approve related capital project budget ordinance. This sets in motion a process that will be capped in September 2nd by the public hearings, so that we can meet with the local government commission in September and have them approve the financing for this project. Number 13 is to waive erosion and settlement control performance bond requirements for Union Academy. Mr. Mayor, that concludes your consent agenda, and I'll be happy to turn the meeting over to you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that will pass. Going into the regular agenda now on item 14, Land Development Plan Text Amendment, public hearing.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Doug Britt with the Planning Department, and tonight staff has presented a text amendment to the residential use section of the Land Development Plan. This section provides strategies for residential development standards within our Land Development Plan. Prior to 2008, the city experienced an extraordinary amount of growth for residential development within the city of Monroe. And during that time, due to the demands of the public infrastructure and resources, the city adopted a one-year moratorium from January 2008 to January 2009. During that time, city staff made modifications to the land development plan with regards to strategies for different requirements for residential development. And two of those strategies, which was adopted by the council at that particular time, was that one, no single-family subdivision shall exceed a total of 150 lots approved within a 5-year period. And number 2 was no more than 50 lots shall be recorded within 1 calendar year for any approved subdivision. Since that time, staff has met with several developers over the years trying to develop within Monroe, and along with those and other issues, it's become troublesome for them to develop property for residential terms within the city of Monroe. Staff is requesting to remove these 2 items from the land development plan. This item was presented to the plan board and received unanimous approval from the plan board, recommended to the council. And at this time, I'll be glad to answer any questions if the council has any.
Council have any questions? Okay, thank you, sir. This is a public hearing. Is anyone here who would like to speak in favor? Is anyone here who would like to speak in opposition? Here none, we'll close this public hearing and take action.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve.
A second.
I have a motion, a second, in discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, item 14 passed. Item 15, zoning map amendment request, property on Roland Drive.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Jeff Durward, planner with the City of Monroe. And this item is a zoning map amendment request by Daniel Tom for property located along Roland Drive. The applicant is requesting a change in zoning from R20 low-density single-family residential to conditional district S&D vending storage. The applicant is proposing to construct a 3,850 square foot building on the subject property that will be used for office and warehouse uses. S&D vending will occupy one of the units and will lease out the other unit after the building is constructed. I'd like to orient you to the aerial map on the screen. The subject property is highlighted in blue. Roland Drive is to the north. Old Charlotte Highway is to the west. The Love's Plumbing site is located immediately adjacent to it, so it's right near the corner of Old Charlotte and Roland Drive. Current zoning map this is the current zoning map for the property. Subject property again is highlighted in blue. Surrounding parcels are zoned general business in R20. This is the proposed site plan for the property. The site will have direct access off of Roland Drive. The building will be set back 57 feet from the front property line. The applicant will be providing 5 parking spaces in the front. The front parking area and side access drive will be paved. The rear loading area in the back will be gravel. The applicant's also providing an 8-foot streetscape buffer along the front, a 20-foot landscape buffer along the northeast side of the property, and a 10-foot landscape buffer in the rear with a 6-foot high opaque fence. And these are the elevation drawings. This is the front elevation drawing of the building. The building will be primarily brick on the front with some hardy board plank on the top. And this is the side of the building that will face Love's Plumbing. And we'll have a loading bay on the side with a 3-foot high brick base, and then the remaining of the facade material will be hardy board. And this is a quick shot of the other side. It's identical in style, just without the loading bay. And this side is the side that faces the existing single-family residential house. And finally, this is the elevation drawing of the rear of the building. It will have 2 loading bays on the rear, and it will be a hardy board plank on the facade material for the rear of the building. Additional conditions agreed to by the applicant include that no outdoor storage will be allowed on the site at all. The hours of operation will be from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Signage must adhere to Office Transitional District sign standards, and the only permitted uses for the site will be office and warehouse. The property has been posted and notice has been given to adjacent property owners. Staff and Planning Board have both recommended approval of this request, and a resolution for land development plan compliance has been included in your packets for review. The applicant is here tonight. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have for staff.
Council have any questions?
Did you get any replies from residents in the area?
We had one phone call to the posting from an adjacent property, just inquiring about what it was, and they were okay with it based on our conversation.
Any other questions for council? Thank you, sir. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor? Hearing none. Anyone here who would like to speak in opposition? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and take action.
Motion to approve, including resolution.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That will pass. Item 16, award of contract for Bearskin Creek Greenway.
And again, I'm Jeff Durwart, planner for the city of Monroe. And this agenda item is a contract award to Kimley Horn and Associates in the amount of $239,612 for preliminary engineering and design services for the Bearskin Creek Greenway project. For reference, on the screen is the general proposed route of the Greenway. The Greenway will be 1.6 miles in length and will run primarily along Bearskin Creek, starting at the intersection of Ivy Shop Drive and Skyway Drive in the east to Ice Morley Street in the west. The Greenway will connect 3 city-owned parks, the Union County Farmers Market, and historic downtown Monroe. In 2013, the Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization, CRTPO, and NCDOT amended their respective transportation improvement plans to program Federal Highway Administration state funds for the project. A reimbursement agreement between the city and NCDOT in the amount of $1,640,000 for the design and construction of the Greenway was executed on September 17, 2013. 80% of these funds are from the Federal Highway Administration and 20% are from the state. Right-of-way acquisition, permitting costs, and eligible costs above the awarded amount are the city's responsibility. In January of this year, the City of Monroe issued a request for qualifications for preliminary engineering and design services for the project. The RFQ method for procurement of engineering services was required by NCDOT as typical for their projects. 8 firms in total submitted a response to the RFQ. A selection committee that was comprised of city staff reviewed the qualifications packages and selected Kimley Horn and Associates as the most qualified firm based on their experience and past performance of similar projects, the experience of their staff, their proposed schedule of completion for the project, and their firm's understanding of project-specific issues. The city then requested a cost proposal from Kimley Horn and Associates. The proposal was examined in detail by NCDOT for cost reasonableness. And after all NCDOT review comments were addressed, the final amount was $239,612, as shown on the cost summary on the screen. I highlighted the amount, and that's where we ended at. You can't see it, but it's $239,612. NCDOT issued a concurrence letter for the cost proposal and scope of services on July 3rd, 2014. Just to go through some of Kimley Horn services under this contract, they will include surveying, coordination meetings with CSX and other stakeholders, public meetings during the design process, environmental permitting and clearance, greenway design plans, coordination with NCDOT through their design review process, stream modeling, geotechnical investigation, structural and hydraulic design, and management of the bid process once it's ready for bid. Costs associated with this contract are reimbursable through the 80% Federal Highway Administration funds and the 20% state matching funds programmed toward the project. An important note is that the 20% state matching funds are subject to the provisions of the 2013 North Carolina Strategic Transportation Bill, which states that the North Carolina financial support will not be provided to independent bicycle and pedestrian projects that are not scheduled for construction by June 30, 2015. While city staff will work as hard as possible to meet this deadline, it is possible that it may be unfeasible due to the amount of outside reviews necessary and the fact that we have to have all the right-of-way acquired. We are currently examining available grant resources and that could potentially make up for the state matching funds. The city also has $200,000 budgeted in the capital reserve fund for greenway projects, and a portion of this could be used to cover the state's 20% matching for the contract if need be. And as mentioned, having the project ready for construction includes having all the right-of-way for the project secured. The path of the greenway will cross through private and commercial property as well as property owned by Union County. The first step for the acquisition project, once the initial design and surveying activities are complete by the engineer, will be to try to reach an agreement with the property owners and reach a mutual agreement for the needed easements. The city does have the option, however, to use eminent domain to acquire the property if it so desires. The city will have to follow all federal requirements for acquisition with this project. The Transportation Committee and staff have recommended the council award this contract in the amount of $239,612 to Kimley Horn and to authorize the interim city manager to execute the necessary documents. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Has all the right-of-way for this trail already been secured? Or?
It has not.
Okay.
That's what
Well,
we
it's a
did.
little way, this is really a little ways down the road then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's something we'll have to proceed with while the design is going on.
Yeah, this is the design phase.
Any council have any other questions, comments? Okay.
Motion to approve?
I have a motion. Have a second?
Second.
I have a motion, a second, all in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, that'll pass. Item 17, the Winchester Teen Center.
Mr. Mayor? Put my stuff up.
Good evening. Our committee, appointed by council, has completed our charge to develop the design for the Winchester Teen Center. I served as chair, and Councilwomen Nash and Duncan also joined me. The ad hoc committee made up of people born and reared in the Newtown, Winchester area, or who still own a home there. Committee members Monroe, Allsbrooks, Belton, Crider, Irving, White, Redfern, Massey, Hood, Coffee Hood, and let me thank you for your service. We wanted a facility that is friendly, multi-person functional, ecologically friendly, and handicap accessible. A facility to specifically serve all teens of Monroe. This first stage meets those goals. The 2010 census reports that the population under 5 to be 9.2%, and the population from 5 to 9 to be 8.7%. This gives us a total of 17.9% of people who meet this population. This is our next generation of adults. Not yet adults, but not children. Research shows that teens in today's society unfortunately face some pretty tough challenges, such as depression, loneliness, drugs, gangs, peer pressure, suicide, poverty, STDs, and that between the hours of 3 p.m. and 6 p.m., some teens, and I stress some, engage in at-risk activities and destructive behaviors. Teen years are experimental years. And if you remember back to your own years, how you experimented, and if you're a parent now, you can attest to that. And I want to stress that I said some teens. With this youth population of 17.9%, there is a need for a teen center to counteract a lack of activities, especially for teens. No appropriate place to socialize, no or little supervision, and to foster a need for positive engagement and leadership responsibilities. The teen center purpose is to provide a safe, supervised place for teens, opportunities to participate in wholesome fun activities, have an active role in the voice and services that are provided to them, to explore and develop leadership roles, and to give us the opportunity to give them information, whether it be educational, health, social welfare. You may ask, well, how can this teen center benefit the community? It can benefit the community by bringing teens together to promote positive behaviors, to engage teens in community projects, whether it be a community service project or a youth project. It helps to promote and help them to learn to develop their own community service projects. It acts as a preventive measure to keep them and steer them away from these negative behaviors such as drugs, alcohol, dropout, early pregnancy. Activities promoting expression and communication, for example, drama, art, discussion groups. Sometimes they just need someone to listen to them. It promotes and enhances responsibility, for example, their own team board and support groups. It creates an atmosphere of ownership so they can take responsibility for their place, as well as reducing hanging out in the streets, which is not a positive alternative. We could also have tutorial programs. This teen center was just not an idea of a bunch of old people. A diverse group of teens from the Monroe Youth Council and the Sutton Park community came in to talk to us, to tell us what teens wanted, what teens needed. They were told to dream, realizing that all dreams don't come true. We want to thank them for their help as well. Their input was invaluable. We recognize that actions taken by our General Assembly puts our city in financial stress. But this tonight is merely a design phase, a starting point. As the elected policy makers for the city of Monroe, it is incumbent upon us to be committed to make decisions that ensure the well-being for all of our citizens equally, regardless of age, and to make these decisions with reference, recognizing that our community is greatly affected by the foundation that we lay, that we provide now for prosperity later. Tonight, we present the design phase. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anthony. Ms. Anthony asked that I go through the process that the committee and the staff went through over the last 7 months to get to the position or place where we can report this to the council. Let me start out by, for the sake of the audience, to say that during their January 27th special council meeting on council priorities, a request was made from the floor of the council to request the mayor to appoint council member Anthony, Mayor Pro Tem Nash, and Council Member Duncan to an ad hoc committee to pull the Winchester community together and start having community brainstorming ideas so that when an architect was added to the mix, he could have these ideas available and put something together. That would be the end of the quote. What we did after receiving that instruction from council was to put together a program where we could meet with members of the community, a steering committee, and meet with the youth to talk about what they would like in a teen center. Designing something in a vacuum would do no good to the community, and it would give the architect no instruction on how to design a building. So over the last month, we have met monthly with the steering committee and with youth in the community to talk about what they would like in a center. Assistant Manager Brian Bourne, rec staff, and I, and the council members, listen to the community and ask what they would like in a youth center. Once we got their suggestions, we brought the youth in and asked them what they thought, got their ideas, brought them together, and then began to hone in on what a center really is. Towards the end of the spring, what we did was we actually placed the different activities within specific rooms and the number of days of the week we would have tutorial, days of the week we would have activities, and the size of each class. We also talked about the possibility of using an outdoor area for community events such as family reunions and cookouts and things like that, and program that into the center. Once we got this data together, we were able to tie it down to specific days and times and number of participants. And what an architect does with that is to develop a what's called a space needs study, and there's standard sizes in the architectural profession, so that if you show the architect, for instance, that there's going to be a computer tutoring room that'll have 30 participants 4 times per week, his formula can tell you that you should be looking at a room of 750 feet. We thought that a multi-purpose room would work very, very well for the center because we could split it into 3 rooms and have a number of events during the week. But towards the weekend, we could make it one large room for community-wide meetings and make it as flexible as possible. So you'll see that the total size of the multi-purpose room would be for 300 people seated, and that size would be 4,000 square feet. A gaming room, we expect 40 participants a night, 6 days a week, or 1,000 square feet. A program room, 25 participants, 4 times a week, 625 feet. The dance, karate, and exercise room has actually got a gym-type floor on it because of the need for a kind of a resilient surface that won't hurt the body when you jump up and down. Again, we'd use that 5 times a week. I'm not going to go through the whole building, but that's the way that the entire effort of the committee produced a concept of a true building to give you and the architect a sense of what we were looking at. The building total size for heated space is 13,468 feet. So that would be the size of the building, and that's to give you a sense of that. That's just a little bit larger than Fire Station Number 4 that we've just gone through the design process. Once we got to this point where we are ready to turn our findings over to the architect, it completes the charge that the council gave the committee on January 27th, and we're here reporting to the council as per their instruction. Thank you, sir. I can answer any questions
Council have any
from the
questions?
floor or from a chair.
Question or comments?
How much would this cost at 13,000 square feet, or what are we looking at?
Well, what we did was one of the things that the committee asked is that we build the building according to LEED standards, which is a very energy efficient standard. We had just finished the fire station doing its cost estimate, and it is built to LEED standards. So what I did was I took the square footage of this building and looked very carefully at the fire station and removed things from that quote that were specific to a fire station. For instance, the exhaust system for the trucks. I pulled that out of the fire station quote. And I pulled the huge the dryer and the washer for their clothing out. But I used the net square footage price of the fire station and applied it to this center at $223 a foot. So if you multiply that by the internal heated square footage, the building itself is $3,353,000. If you add the 30 by 50 picnic shelter, the covered grill area to that, then your total building site work and outdoor covered space comes to $3,075,248 without furniture. And we've estimated the furniture too, but that's what the price of the building itself would be.
How much was that again, sir?
$3,075,248. That's excluding $45,000 for furniture.
Well, unless I misunderstood it, was the backup figure Was it not 3,353,000?
First figure you said.
All right, now we're at $3,075. I mean,
3 million,
That's because the picnic shelter and some other things that were added on.
I know we said $75,
Yeah.
$3,075. That's
$3
less to
million,
start with.
$3,353. I'm sorry, $3,353. I was reading too fast.
All right, now the next figure was what?
The,
You said 3,075,000, or I misunderstood.
right, the total building, site work, and outdoor covered space exclusive of soft cost and furniture is $3,075,248. So it's $71,770 more expensive than just the building itself. You know, when you add all the furniture and the soft costs, which is architect's fees and reimbursables, the total well, I'm going to have to add up the whole thing because my computer didn't give me my total.
One of the things that some people may not be aware of, but back in 2004, I think it was right after I first came on council, there was a committee formed, and we hired Central Island Council of Government. They sent Bill Dustin down here, and they met with the community because the city owned the property over at Winchester. They had bought up all the houses and tore them down, and at that time, the community was promised this teen center. I'm not sure that was the actual term of it then. And nobody told them that when they were going through this plan and design, nobody told them at that time there was no money for a teen center. So that's the reason this thing, it keeps resurfacing, was because back in 2005, and I think it was called the developmental plan or something. I always just called it a master plan. But there was a lot of input from the community at that time, and I think, Mayor, you served on it, I served on the committee.
served on it.
P.E. Bazemore served on it. And the reason it came up was because they wanted to build a habitat village over there, and people didn't want habitat houses. They wanted something done to benefit the city and the community. And so that was the reason the teen center was talked about at that time. But the people that were serving on the committee, nobody ever stood up and said, we have no money to build this. This is just a plan we're doing. And so I think that was very unfair to them at the time. But that's the reason this keeps coming up. And at some point in time, we have got to address the kids on the street. We've had some incidents recently with 12 to 16-year-olds. We know that there have been cuts in our program. Originally we talked about going ahead and building this, but we know now that we're facing a deficit. So basically tonight, what we're talking about is the design phase. $200,000 was set aside in the budget to just design this building. It's not saying we're building it tomorrow or we're building it next year or the following year. It's just saying we are going to have a design for your building. We are committed to building something that we promised y'all back in 2005. So, but they understand finances. They understand that we could have $1 million deficit next year, but this is just for the design of the building.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mayor, I think we have some people out in the audience that would
Yeah,
like to speak up.
I'll just wait on the council to get through.
I may have some comments after some of the people in the audience. But
Okay.
I'll reserve my comments until.
Yeah, I've got a sign-up sheet here, right here. On the public comment period, I've got 4 people to speak. I'm going to
Mayor,
take, I'm sorry.
I would maybe suggest that perhaps what you have is those that are speaking on the item, you go ahead and have those folks speak, because that way then those that are here for public comment, plus I think Councilmember Jordan has indicated his desire to speak at the end after the citizens have spoken on this item. I believe that's what
Correct, yeah.
Councilmember Jordan was suggesting. So my suggestion to you, sir, would be perhaps have those that are speaking not on your public comment period, just the ones that are confining it to the
Yes, lead
agenda.
the public comment.
Yes, sir.
type of thing.
Yes, sir.
All right. The signatures I have here is, I will take them as it was signed, And the first one we have is Ms. Jackie Crawford, if you would like to come and speak.
Good afternoon, can you hear me? My name is Jackie Crawford, and I grew up in the Winchester area. There was a center there that was built in 1941 for the soldiers. And that's where they turned it over and made it a teen center for us. There was two of them. One was for the whites and one was for the blacks. And one was the whites was downtown, ours was on Winchester. And it was big enough for all the soldiers to go in and do whatever. But during my time, it was a dance area. They had everything. They had a teen center. They had a teen committee where they had meetings and stuff. And it was just big enough to keep us off the street and out of trouble. And they taught us things. We learned how to do different crafts like sewing and embroidering and stuff like that. That people now, children probably don't know how to sew a button on. But we were taught that, you know. And then they had a library in there where you could go and just read if you couldn't go anywhere else. They had ping pong tables, and it was just big. It was for the community. And when we say teen center now, we don't mean just for all the teens. The adults need to do something too. You know, me, I need to get out and go somewhere, you know, besides going on my front porch and looking out and turning around and coming back. But we had weekly dances. Every Friday there was a dance. And there was no whole lot of fighting and cutting and whatever. They had a good time. Miss Bell and Miss Marsh were over teaching crafts, and we made lots of things, you know, things that we didn't know how to do. So that's what we need now, is activity to get our kids off the street so that they'll know how to do some of this stuff, you know, not just sit and watch video games all the time and stand on the corner and watch fights or whatever they do. So that's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ronald Curtin, Mr. Curtin, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Ron Curtin, and I've been in Monroe all my life. And sort of reminds me of the old phrase that they had in the movie, if you build it, they'll come. In my dealings with teenagers and young people, I coach rec basketball and rec baseball, and we have meetings down at our center. And we have a teen youth group down at our center, in the Camp Sutton Center. And in my dealings with young people, I found that they just want somebody to listen to them. They want to have a place to go, a place that they can call their own. Because like with anything else, you're going to get some people that don't want to learn, don't want to do anything. But there are a lot of them out there that do. And I think if we had some place for them to go and foster those, because there are a lot of talented young people out. Now we're beginning to see that, even in my community, we're seeing 10, 9, 10, 11-year-olds out with guns. 12-year-olds, if we had somewhere that they could go and express themselves and just discuss the issues, things that are bothering them or things that they're dealing with, that would be great. And like Councilwoman Nash said, it's time that we, the community and the leaders of the city, start addressing the needs of the young people. Because if we just keep letting them hang out, they're going to get younger and younger, and they'll be hanging out on the streets with nothing to do. So I think this teen center would be an absolute positive for the city of Monroe and for the citizens of Monroe, and that will give them some place to go, something to do, and those ideas that they have in their head, they'll have a place to present those ideas. And if we can keep one of them out of the system, if we can get one of them into college by giving them a place to go and somewhere to some of their aspirations being met, finding out what they want to do in life, I think it'd be well worth it. So I ask the council, please at least look at the design of it, because I think in the long run it will be a positive thing for the city of Monroe and for the citizens. And if we build it, they will come.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Diane Little.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. don't have the type of tenure that some of these really great people who have talked before me have, but I have 10 years in, and I've seen a lot happen here in Monroe. I just want to appeal to you, Mr. Mayor, and to the council of the need and the viability of something as simple as a teen center. The viability of a place for youth to call their own is a 70s argument. I mean, these types of things have been researched, and in the 50s with the rampant gang activity and then the coming civil rights movement, these things were studied to ad nauseum. People studied them, they researched them, they have the statistics. Let me read to you some of the things that they've said. That valid research, not just theoretical models, but empirical research has been done on this particular subject that we're facing here in 2014. When children are learning in a fun environment, the lessons taught stay with them. When children have a safe place to go to interact with peers in a positive, structured activity, they do not engage in countercultural behavior that is scary and riddled with dangerous consequences. The council has 2 former law enforcement officers on this council, and you know that empty streets, streets not being roamed by youth, are safe streets. I come from a law enforcement family, and when I grew up, we had PAL, which is the Police Athletic League. We had the Boys and Girls Club. We had a host of church organizations. Nobody but police officers and law enforcement supported those particular endeavors because they valued the fact that these children would not be on the street, and they knew the value of their support. It was law enforcement that started PAL. But let's just say that all of that sounds good to you and it's really nice, but it doesn't really involve you. Either the children who will be mostly using this teen center don't look like you, or maybe your children are grown and it doesn't affect you. So let's look at it from a fiscal standpoint of view, because that's really important. You know, I think it was Richard Wiley. He was the United States former Secretary of Education. He says that children's minds do not turn off at 3 o'clock. So what we're saying here is that we're going to turn these children off at 3, and we don't care what they do after they've left school. That's an embarrassment to our city, because that is not the way to grow children and to give them value. So we're going to look at this fiscally, and when young people live in a city that embraces them, that values them and allows them to thrive, even if they go away to school, they come home to live, to work, to raise their families, and they become valuable consumers and capital generators. If you don't care about the kids, think about the money that you'll get with these same people who will call this home and want to live here because it was so good to them when they were growing up. I think that an aging city without younger citizens buying into the city is a dead city. And I don't want to see that happen to Monroe. Believe it or not, I've enjoyed it. But I think that we also have an influx of people. You look at the numbers, you look at the demographics. Sure, people are moving in. But the statistics that I read say that when those people's children become of age, they leave the city. There's nothing for them. There's no value. They're not valued when they're growing up, so why should they be here? They're certainly not going to bring their children here. The architectural work and funding for this center, to the tune of over $200,000, was passed through committee as a budget line item and was approved by this council. And the citizens of Monroe want you to follow through with that job. When the toll road creates a bypass here for Monroe, all we'll have is the county seat. And remember, just a few years ago, the county commissioners tried to take that from us and make Indian Trail the county seat. If we do not invest in our young citizens now, we only have ourselves to blame when the city does not live up to its full potential. I know all of you. I do. I know all of the council in some way or form. We've worked together. And I'm sure that you gave sincere thought, and even the planners from before, the past council members, I know you gave sincere thought and planning to the development and the construction of this particular teen center that's so needed. I ask you all to vote yes to our city's future and certainly yes to our teens. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tracy Holmes. Ms. Holmes.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. To the mayor and to council members. I just want to stand and say that I've been a native of Monroe all my life. I remember when my dad came here back in the early 70s. I grew up in Monroe. And just from looking at the city of Monroe and a lot of people moving in, we've fallen by the wayside as far as our teens. I remember I could walk to the movie theater. I could go to the skating ring. There was other places that they had for youth to go. But right now, there's nothing for them to go, nowhere for them to go. Sometimes when I ride down the street, it's like kids all in the street, nowhere to go, fighting, using profanity, disrespectful. If we really are leaders and we want our society and to take our community back, somebody got to take a stand so that these teens will be able to go somewhere. I have a son that's 17 years old. There's nothing for him to do right here in Monroe. Everything that we do, we have to go to Indian Trail, including to the movie theater. I don't even know why the movie theater is not here. There's no skating ring or anything, no place at all. I know about Winchester. I was actually a child that went over to Winchester. I remember Miss Bell went to ceramic class, and at that time when I was there, it was like an embrace from the community around there. It wasn't that we just went to a place and had fun. We had other adults encouraging us to be who we are today. It was hard. If your mother's was working, you could go to the center. You could be there. It was painting. It was sports. It was church events. And it didn't matter what color you was or what culture. It was encouragement. It was leadership. Everybody was like a family in Union County. But now it's like our kids are destroyed. Sure, they improved Monroe High School, but what they do when they get out of school, what they do after on Friday nights and Saturdays or during the day, where do they go? I know that we all have a budget, sometimes in our homes and even with the city council members and those here today that has a budget that makes sure this county is ran. But sometimes we have to bend the budget a little bit. Maybe you can't do everything, but somebody needs to reconsider about why our children are falling by the wayside. My son, I encourage him every day to be all he can do in school and get an education. Nobody is telling the kids that at all, unless they're part of the Monroe football team. I can truly say that. The teachers who stand up for them every day. But what about the parents who have not the income or the money for the children to go? Somebody today need to take a stand. I don't want to keep riding down the street seeing kids getting shot for nothing because they have nowhere to go or nothing to do. And granted, it doesn't matter about the violence or what's going on. If we actually as adults would take a stand and show our kids some initiative and let them know that they can be somebody, they got somebody that's going to cultivate them, their demeanors will change, they'll stand up, and they too can be successful. Because if I can be successful and walk away with 2 degrees from going to Winchester, daycare center, mom and daddy both had to work, why come we can't do something now about it in this county? Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. Okay, back to the council. Any council have any comments?
Mayor, I'd just like to make a couple of comments. One, to say I appreciate those individuals that spoke and spoke from their hearts. I appreciate all the hard work that the committee did. And right now we're at the point where the council is being asked to move forward with expending the $200,000 that we have in the budget to go ahead with the design phase. I would hope that this teen center that the community feels that they need so desperately will receive the same kind of consideration that our Performing Arts Center received that we were trying to build downtown. I would hope that this teen center receives the same kind of consideration that the Civic Center received that we were trying to build downtown. I hope this teen center receives the same kind of consideration that downtown Monroe receives from the city council. I would hope that this teen center receives the same kind of consideration that our airport receives from this city council. 2 years ago, when we were trying to get some money together for the teen center, some soft money like this right here, for design phase of it, city council members said to me, "Oh, Billy, that's just not a priority of the city council." At the beginning of this year, at least 4 council members felt that this was a priority, because there's no way that we could have gotten the $200,000 in the budget unless 4 council members went along with it. So I hope that we will consider this project something important and something for the future of our young folks. And finally, Mayor, you and I were looking at some of the scenes this evening from what's going on in Ferguson, Missouri. And I told you that Monroe is headed for Ferguson, Missouri. The only thing we have not had is an incident yet. And what these citizens are telling us is they want us to work with our teams so that we don't have that incident. I would like to think that if Ferguson, Missouri's leadership could have some of their time back and see that this was coming, that they would have made the kind of decision that hopefully we will make tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Anyone else?
I make a motion to instruct the staff to draft a request for architectural services and to solicit proposals. The committee will serve as a committee to interview and recommend the firm to the council.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussions?
I have something I'd like to say, Mr. Mayor. As being part of this committee, I served on this committee, and I appreciated the opportunity to do so. As the former police chief, I agree with everybody that we do need to do something with our children and to take care of them. I am 100% behind that. I was serving on this committee and listened to the concerns of the community and, like I said, share those concerns. Started checking and started to look on how we can make this happen and what we can do to make this happen. And right now we can't make it happen because we don't have the money. And that is because of some of the things that are going on with the state, with the county. Also, we're just building a new fire station and trying to figure out what it is that we need to do. I think that it is important that we do something for our children. I think that the money that we put aside may be better well spent right now is fixing the facilities that we do have currently in the Winchester Center, the pool, the gymnasium, the Bazemore Center. Put internet connections in those. That's just a suggestion to figure out what we can do right now. Because as everybody says, we can't start anything now. We can't do anything right now. So what you're doing is we're going to look at plans, but those plans can change on down the road 5-10 years from now when we finally can have the money to do something. And then what are we going to do? Those plans will be antiquated and outdated. So we might need to think outside the box and say, maybe let's figure out what we can do now to make things better. Instead of saying, let's do the plans for several years down the road. We need it now, not several years down the road. And if there was a way that we could build this teen center now, and there's not unless we have a significant tax increase to be able to afford it. So we need to look at everything. And I hate to have to say that. I've thought long and hard in trying to figure out what we can do. So those are my comments. And also I'd like to add that and I wasn't on the council, I just was elected to the council, but back in 2004 when we were talking about this and went back and looked, and it was a strip mall that I think the people on the committee were looking at. It was building a strip mall with businesses. There was some mention of a community center. But that's just something that, we have to consider that, the money's just not there. And let's do something today, now, with the money that we have appropriated. $200,000 will go a long way in fixing up the facilities that we have on Winchester and also our other rec centers.
Mayor,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have a motion on the floor, but before we address that motion, it would take a lot more than $200 to go back to the existing centers and do something with them. And we're talking about the design and design only. And as you already know, many times we have gone with the design, with the figures and other things. That is a starting point. And yes, no one's asking to build it now. We're well aware of the General Assembly's taking out privilege license taxes. We're well aware of that. But I would like to address the motion on the floor, which is simply the money that has already been appropriated. And I will also reiterate, we had 4 people who listed the teen center, and I think Debbie was one of them, as a priority.
Yes, I did, and it is a priority for me. But if we can't afford it, we don't have the money.
We have the 200. I don't want to debate it, but we have the $200 already, $200,000 already in the budget. So let's address the motion.
You may can correct me, but I don't recall ever been told that this was gonna be just for the plans. We were gonna vote on a teen center that's gonna cost $4 million.
No, sir.
And I'm here tonight, and between this and, no, we have not had one discussion since this council, since the committee started meeting in January, I believe is correct.
Well, sir,
I've never heard one thing from the committee.
You certainly haven't, because the report was given tonight. You wouldn't have heard it before the report was given.
Report given to who?
The report was given tonight.
Oh, I know that, that's what I'm saying.
So you wouldn't have heard it prior
No,
to that.
that's what I'm saying, that's what I'm saying, I haven't heard it. I haven't heard one thing from the committee, or the chair of the committee, or anybody until tonight. So, I thought we voted on a $4 million building.
No, sir.
That's gonna cost, how much would it cost a year to keep it up? We're gonna have to hire.
We're
how many people?
answering questions before
sorry.
they even ask. We're talking about simply the design, and we're finding wiggle room to say no.
I understand
So let's
that,
just
and I understand that, I'm not against the teen center, I'm not against anything for the young people. But what I'm saying is, I came in here tonight thinking I was gonna vote on a $4 million building, and now I've heard that we're voting on plans. And my question now would be to Mr. Hyde, how many people we gonna have to hire, and how much does it cost a year to keep the building up?
This wasn't something that the committee was challenged to do, or the staff was requested to do. Now, just in preparation for future discussions, we did produce an operation and maintenance budget for future meetings, and I have that for you. But and this is just as new. I haven't given this to anybody, but it would be, our estimate would be $288,410 a year. Again, this was for a future time, but since you've asked, that's what it'd be.
Okay.
You got a motion and a second. Let's vote.
Well, we got discussion. You get by that, did you take it? Is there discussion through? Okay, I have a motion, Ms. Anthony has a motion on the
And
floor.
the motion is for the design of the building.
Understand it. We have a motion on the floor, and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay. Any other?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion that we take the money that we set aside, this $200,000, and take it and put it in the Winchester Center. Let's do the renovations. Let's go in. Let's fix our gym. Let's fix the pool. Fix the Bazemore Center. Put computers, internet service in there if that's what we need. And we have any money left over, we can look at our other centers that we have in the city.
It already has internet service.
The computers, which is what I understand that we needed.
It just doesn't have enough space.
I'm sorry.
I said it doesn't have enough space. It's a very small space.
Mr. Mayor, you had a
Second.
motion and a second. Mr. Keziah seconded it.
Okay, I have a motion, a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Opposed?
Opposed, Mayor.
Okay, all opposed, so that's, did you get that, Ms. Bridget? Okay, all in favor, again, raise your hand. And all opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, you got that, Ms. Bridget? So we direct, I guess, the committee can handle it, or we can direct the staff to handle it, or whatever you want to look at. I don't have a problem with a nice teen center. It's $4 million and 288,000, 200 plus thousand. I think we need to go in there and do something, but I think we need to do what we can afford, then move forward with what we got when we can, because we're already $1.5 million in the hole. Is that correct, Mr. Finance Manager?
Mr. Mayor, with the council's concurrence, I do think that the community's done a great job on their space needs study. And I think that you could take your space needs study and then look at the floor plan of your existing center and incorporate your space needs study into the existing center. And if you need to build or expand the center, then you can recognize it as that. But I think that this forms a great foundation. This work that the community's done forms a great foundation to use as you study the existing facility. So I'd suggest that may be your point of departure.
All right.
Mayor, I don't think that'll be necessary. I think that the people that are in this room will see to it that the teen center gets built as proposed by this, as proposed by the committee. So, you know, I would not suggest that the staff spend too much time with their $200,000. I think that the community realizes what it has to do.
Okay.
And I think that they're going to see to it that it gets done. Thank you.
All right. Item 18, the budget amendment.
Yes, Mayor.
Appropriation for Monroe Monroe High School.
Yes, Mayor. We had received a request from Monroe Athletic Foundation for $5,000. And I'll give you a little bit of the history of the Athletic Foundation. Back in '93, when the systems merged, we had Monroe City Schools and Monroe and Union County Schools. Well, at that time, the city took care of the midget league football with its 7th and 8th graders. When they merged the system, the county schools said they would pay for one final year, and that the Athletic Foundation had to take over the midget school program, like all the county schools. Well, at that time, the city council gave $5,000 for the startup cost of the midget football. Well, since that time, things have, they've gotten a lot more kids. And one of the guidelines was when we gave the money, we have so many kids that receive free lunch at Monroe, at the middle school and the high school, that it's really hard for them to pay fees to play sports. And we all know that sports are structure and discipline for some of these kids, and it does keep them off the street. Anyway, since that time, they have taken over cheerleading, and they've taken over soccer, and now they're also talking about doing a baseball league. And what people sometimes don't realize is that the Booster Club or the Athletic Foundation at Monroe, they don't receive any money from the school. It's all in fundraising efforts. And it's very hard for Monroe to raise money. It really is. And they take up the slack that the high school does not get in gate attendance. They pay for athletic banquets for the kids and the awards. They also have to supplement sometimes uniforms. And they have a lot more kids that have come out for cheerleading this year. And so at that, you know, the outside agency recommended $5,000, and then the finance committee met, and I think Councilmember Keziah said they have need of equipment, so they recommended another $5,000. So with that being said, I would like to make the motion that we give a budget amendment of $10,000 to Monroe Athletic Foundation to help take care of the kids.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comment or question from the council? I think this is good, but the question I have, is some of this money going to buy some uniforms for some of those players that ordinarily could not get a uniform?
Yes,
or whatever the need is?
What happens is they charge a fee to play football and cheerleading. A lot of these kids cannot afford the fee, so therefore they have to give back something to the community. They used to make them clean up the stadium, and everybody did it, not just the kids that couldn't afford to pay. It was a team effort. They teach them you operate as a team. And so this will help them buy some of the equipment. They've had a lot more kids come out for cheerleading, you know, a lot more than they've had in the past. And, you know, those uniforms are very expensive. They need to replace some of the midget league football. You know, they have guidelines they have to go by. So they have a need for additional stuff this year.
Let me speak to that, too. I coach the 6th grade team at Monroe Middle. We have 26 kids on our team, and probably we may have 8 that can afford to pay the $75. When you get into Weddington, Marvin Ridge, their fee's up to $400. Our equipment is pretty antiquated, to be quite honest with you. Am I right, Parnell? It doesn't come up to a lot of the others, so we're putting teams out on the field that, in my opinion, is a lot of cases substandard compared to the others. I would have suggested more than that in order to bring them up. I remember several years ago, we bought band uniforms for the high school because two of us went to a football game and was embarrassed because the uniforms were unraveling, and the other team looked so much better. Our program, we went to Marvin Ridge Saturday for a scrimmage. We won 2 of the 3. 7th grade team lost, 8th grade and 6th grade won. You know, that's to me a small investment, because when you do put your kids on the field, you want them to be proud of themselves. And in fact, it wouldn't hurt my feelings if we bumped that. Because seriously, they don't have the funds.
I pretty much knew the answer, but I just wanted to be sure that some of these underprivileged kids, some of this money was going to get them to play football,
Mayor.
or normally they would not.
Mayor, we have Pernell Sowell here. He is the president of the Athletic Foundation at Monroe High School. Pernell can come speak to us.
I'm not questioning.
Oh, I know, but he can
I'm
address
not questioning this allocation. I just want to be sure that some of these kids that cannot afford to play football are afforded where they can play football.
Mayor,
I
we
don't
don't
want them to-
we don't turn away any kid.
I'm sorry?
Every kid that come and play our sport, we don't turn them away.
That's
They play,
great.
period.
That's how you build character.
Need to be saying more.
Well, if you'd like, but you don't need to.
Well,
Yeah.
Pernell is picking up where because I used to volunteer with the Athletic Foundation. I know how hard these kids have it. And so Pernell has taken that over so he can address the number of cheerleaders we've had coming out. And cheerleading uniforms aren't cheap, are they, Pernell?
Not at all. We've had a large amount of children than we ever had in a long time. For us football, we have more football players than we had in a long time. I don't know where the kids coming from, but that's fine. I have no problem with them coming. But my problem is I want them on the field safe, and I want them to go back to the parents safe. The equipment we have now is it's outdated. We've been using it probably for 10 years or more. The difference between our equipment and the Monroe High School equipment, they have to get their equipment tested every 2 years. We don't. So we got outdated equipment that we putting kids on the field that's causing them to screen damage or harm somewhere along the way if we don't get this stuff replaced. And you hate to turn a kid away because of the equipment, but we have to turn them away because of the equipment. We just can't afford it. We're talking about a helmet $150 a piece. We're talking about shoulder pads almost $200. This stuff is very expensive, and the fundraiser, the Monroe Booster Club Athletic primary responsibility is the high school program. But we picked up the middle grade program because they're done away with in the past year, so we had to pick them up. And like I said, we can't afford to keep both programs without getting some type of system somewhere.
You know, the equipment, I can speak firsthand because I'm coaching those kids. We right now still don't have 3 helmets. And the last ones we got were definitely not up to par. Shoulder pads were not up to par. The jerseys that they had to give us, we have one kid that this jersey is a high school jersey, it hangs down to his ankles. Think about that a minute. Now here's a kid on the field and the jersey hangs down to his ankles. And yet we still went out on the field last Saturday morning and kicked Marvin Ridge's rock. So,
Well, the 8th graders wearing heading down JV jerseys. That's what they're wearing.
And Pernell, tell how hard it is to raise money at Monroe.
Very.
I mean, I've been there. I know. It's hard to get people to support Monroe High School.
It's hard.
You got your diehards still
But
there.
look at our stands. Sometimes on our ball games, you got a first-class team on the field. You got a half empty stadium. I don't understand what to take to get them in there.
They can't afford it.
I mean, it's just. I guess that's what it is. That's got to be what it is.
may I tell you what, and I'm sincere because like I say, I coached that 6th grade team. 20 won't be too much. And what you're doing is probably going to keep those kids, some of them, from getting hurt.
Lynn, we need to vote on the 10 tonight because we cannot
Well, we-
bring something to the table. We have to wait till the next meeting to vote,
So
I
if
understand
we
it.
were to bring 10 more next meeting, that's.
Am I right, Rob?
I wasn't questioning, I just wanted to be sure.
Okay.
That we would go get the ones that wanted to play, that couldn't afford to play, and I hear that. And I have a motion and a second, and I would say to
Let me
that,
say another thing, comment for it. last Saturday morning, the referees were talking about how well our kids tackle. But you know, that wasn't us. We got 4 kids that played for Powell the year before, and that's a phenomenal program that those guys do down there. And they've been successful. The kids love John Rogers to death. And you would be amazed at what the kids get out of the athletic program, whether it be Powell or whether it be Monroe.
Okay,
One comment before we vote. Okay, I support it, first of all, but I want to make this observation. It's not just underprivileged children who can't afford it. You got working parents now due to society. So I just want to make that clear. It's not just underprivileged kids.
Well, I'm glad you did, and that's what I meant. I just didn't say it properly. So thank you for that. But I would say, you know, we certainly want them to play. We want them to play safe, and we want them to sports does a lot of things for them. So I'll have a motion, a second, to have all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. We'll dress them out, see what they look like, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Cornell.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'll go to the public comment period. Is anyone here who would like to address the council on any other subject? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.